I hate to burst your bubble because you may have been thinking that in these Elysian fields of a sunny bank holiday Monday in our green and pleasant land that all was right with the world, but actually we are stricken with multiple crises that we're going to explore today. Let me start with the obvious. There's a crisis in the summer festival circuit following the tragic death of a young girl yesterday who took not one but two pills, presumably of dubious provenance and presumably of dubious quality. And her mother has sent a heart-rending appeal to the parents and the children that will be headed for Britain's summer festivals this year. As the father of 5 children myself, I got to thinking this morning, you know, her parents must never have imagined that she would be taking drugs at the festival, the Mutiny Festival that she attended. It probably never crossed their mind. That's the sort of thing that other people's children do. And therefore, this could have happened, if not to any of us, because we don't all have children, about which more later, but to many of us. It could have happened to many of our children. 2 dead in one weekend. The Portsmouth Mutiny Festival. Well, Dr. Henry Fisher, Policy Director of VaultFAS, a think tank that explores public policy relating to drugs, has some very challenging, for me, radical ideas as to how that crisis can be tackled. Then there's a crisis in Italy. You may think that Italy is a far-off country of which you know little, at least of their politics. You may think this doesn't affect you. But as a matter of fact, the Italian political crisis is and has as its centre the overweening, dominating, bullying, aggressive power of the EU, the European Union, with which we ourselves are now grappling in our attempts to leave it following the decision to do so by 17.4 million British people just a couple of years ago. The President of Italy has scuppered the formation of a radical government of the League, the Italian League, and the Five Star Movement, who together polled well over half of the votes in Italy. The President has scuppered the formation of a government because the putative governing coalition had nominated as its finance minister someone who is sceptical about the value to Italy of the euro, who believes that the euro serves the interests of the German economy, but not the other economies, and certainly not Italy's economy. Now, that may or may not be true. I happen to think it's true in spades. But it's a matter, surely, for the electorate who governs them, not the deep EU state which has undoubtedly prevailed upon the Italian president not to allow the governing coalition to have this person as their finance minister. So, the putative governing coalition has walked away, handed the mandate back to the president, and said, well, if we can't have the finance minister we have chosen, rather than one that you and the EU want to choose, well, we'll have to have new elections. And if there are new elections in Italy, you can be sure that the League and the Five Star Movement will experience a significant political swing in their favour and will be re-elected by a larger majority. And that will be a crisis indeed for the EU. There's a crisis in Britain, even on this sunny morning, and you may not want to talk about it. But we are now governed by 10 bigots from the 6 counties of the north of Ireland. The DUP now controls the course of events for the entire United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. This was an ineluctable consequence of the disastrous decision made by Theresa May, about whom more later, to call a wholly unnecessary general election last year and then lose it, placing her party, the Conservative Party, entirely dependent upon the DUP of Ian Paisley et al. Why has this now become so sharply a focus of political attention as opposed to last week? Well, the Irish Republic voted in a referendum at the weekend by a landslide majority to radically change Ireland's very restrictive laws on abortion, leaving just 6 counties of Ireland in the entire 2 countries of the UK and Ireland, which continue to make abortion illegal, forcing women who want an abortion to leave their own country and go to somebody else's country in order to have the procedure carried out. And the early signs are that the DUP are digging in. So we have a British government that will have to tolerate the existence of a different abortion law in just 6 counties of a country which as a whole has liberalised policy towards abortion in both the island of Ireland and in the United Kingdom. That's not a tenable situation. The campaign which won such a huge majority in the Republic in the referendum at the weekend is not going to stop at the non-existent border of the 6 counties. A massive campaign will now take place to make what they call Northern Ireland's abortion law the same as the abortion law in Ireland or in Britain or in both. Now, let me put my cards on the table. I'm against abortion. I'm not trying to force anyone else or legislate for anyone else to accept my point of view, but I'm against it for religious and moral reasons. But you simply can't have one abortion law in a tiny part of the United Kingdom, a tiny part of Ireland. You can't expect that to be a stable political settlement. You can't, and it won't be. And so the skids are under the DUP, not just on abortion, but on Brexit and on them keeping Theresa May in power. And there's a crisis in British governance itself. How quietly, apparently imperceptibly, we have moved into a post-Theresa May era. Nobody in the Tory party, in the media, in the general public, any longer believes that this disastrous, this walking disaster of Theresa May is going to be in power much longer. Attention has swiftly moved now as to who and what will take Theresa May's place. The section of the Tory party that is most strongly committed to Brexit is out batting for Jacob Rees-Mogg, and those who most want to remain in the European Union are most hostile to Jacob Rees-Mogg. That's why he got such a difficult time in the media over the weekend, particularly on the Sunday sofa shows, because as a vastly rich man, he has procured a property of some iconic importance. You remember, those of you, d'un certain âge, that window with Mrs. Thatcher and big Cecil Parkinson leaning out of it, taking the jubilant, celebratory cries of the Tory faithful when Thatcher won one majority after another. Well, that is now a window that's owned by Jacob Rees-Mogg. Yes, he's bought Tory Central Office, as was in Smith Square, just a stone's throw from Parliament. Indeed, closer to Parliament than 10 Downing Street is itself. Why has he bought that particular property? Well, you don't need to be Einstein to work that out. And despite his protestations that he has no wish to be Prime Minister, you can be sure that if his fellows wish him to be Prime Minister, he will concur. And then there's another set of Tories who have come up with what they call the Dream Team, but which to me seems something closer to a nightmare team. A team of Michael Gove and Ruth Davidson, who isn't even in the Houses of Parliament, at least not yet. The dog that hasn't barked is that big unruly hound called Boris Johnson. Has he slipped out of the race? And if there's not many people talking about Boris Johnson, there are fewer still talking about Theresa May hanging on. So crisis, crisis everywhere. And we're going to take a drink over it all in the course of the next 2.5 and more hours. This is the mother of all talk shows.